There we go.
Hello, Kate. That's better. So people are coming into the session now.
Right.
So I will go quiet and disappear, and whenever you're ready to start, you can.
Okay. I think it was something to do with having to go back in using the password. I don't know. Zoom is very, very, very mysterious.
Yes, I can't pretend to understand it. It's working now. That's good.
It's working. I'm not freezing, is it? It's not doing that thing, and you're not freezing.
It's good.
Right. Okay. Well, we've placated the Zoom god.
Let's hope so. I shall go and make an ring in the background.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a bit weird. You have to tell me when you think people are here. We should be playing some music or something.
Should we just give them 2 more minutes, let everyone get set?
Yeah.
If we aim to start at 5 minutes past, is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
Super.
I did all my, I made rhubarb during an examiner's meeting yesterday. I just had everything on audio. But they were just taking a lot of numbers. No video sharing. She probably hasn't joined with video. Can you hear me? Is the sound gone? No. I think audience got their videos off and we've got our videos on, and you can't unmute.
Yeah, so Kate and Rachel, you can unmute any of the attendees when you want to invite them to speak, but otherwise everyone's video will be turned off and everyone's microphones will be turned off. Is that helpful?
So it's a fantasy classroom where you can just turn people off and on.
Yeah.
Yes. How many times have you wanted that in year 9, just to be able to reach out and turn them off?
It's about 6 minutes past, so if you want to get started.
God. Right. Yeah, well, I'm ready to go. So is Rachel going to kick off?
I'll introduce you, shall I?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to Kate's, are we calling it a lockdown poetry workshop? Kate,
I think we are. Yeah, I think lockdown is the word. It kind of grew, didn't
it? Kate is an award-winning poet. She's also a teacher. She's absolutely brilliant. I'm sure many of you have come across her work and her advocacy of students writing their own poetry, and if you follow her on Twitter, then you'll have seen many of the examples of their work. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to introduce her to you this afternoon. I've participated in a couple of workshops that Kate has run herself, and I am a reluctant poet, I have to say, and yet I produced some rightish poetry at the end of it. So I'm hoping you're going to enjoy this session. You are disabled in terms of you're being muted and you can't see yourselves on the screen, but you just need to see Kate really, and you can contribute via either the chat function or the Q&A function on Zoom. So over to you, Kate.
Yeah, and we will be allowing a few of you to speak at the end if you are good. So I was originally down to be doing a big barnstorming speech to loads and loads of you English teachers and academics in a hall, and here I am, very much in my own, sitting room, worried that the cat is going to interrupt into this strange, intimate space that we've all joined, that we've all been thrust into. And so when Gail said, "What are we going to do?" I thought we'd try and do something a bit different, and I'm going to try and do a poetry workshop. And actually, I think it might work, because I've been running, since lockdown, I've been running poetry workshops online. So just to wind back a little bit, for the last decade I was poet in residence in my local comprehensive Oxford Spires Academy, and year on year I worked with lots and lots of different students, and some of them were little year sevens in their classrooms, and some of them came at lunchtime, and some of them came after school, and some of them were in EAL groups, and some of them were in inclusion groups of different kinds. I just worked with lots and lots of kids, and over those years I acquired kids who were really, really, really keen on poetry in one way and another. And when lockdown came, all my old students, the ones who were still writing, they always sort of kept in touch with me on and off, and all at once they all suddenly started getting in touch and sending me poems and just wanting a bit of contact. So I thought, well, I miss them, and so I'll download this thing called Zoom and see if I can manage something. My first lessons were absolutely disastrously hampered by my inability to use Zoom, but I've learned a few things. And I think what really has happened is that they've done amazing writing. I think the Zoom space, where you're there and not there, where you're quite private and quite safe, and yet you can share, and where you can get some guidance, I think it's rather magic. And I hope that if we have a successful workshop today, that's something you can maybe take away. I was just going to show you some of their poems. Partly, whoops, only the host can share the moment. I am the host. Ooh. Okay, I'm just going to wait a minute as they make me the host in the background. I hope that, so I have been assigned co-host. There we go, that's excellent. Right, so, mostly I'm just amazed by their poems. This little tiny one, Crossing, this is, Lynette wrote this in, I think, the second week of lockdown. I didn't know I'd miss waiting at traffic lights, waiting for a burst of colour, a static of sound. I didn't know I'd miss noise, crowds, the breath of rain as it hits parched tarmac, being near enough to hear people's breath. I didn't realise I was only exactly alone when I was walking home from school or to the shops. I didn't realise it was the in-between times that held me together. Which is, it's just such a brilliant poem. It's such an amazing evocation of what it was like. And what was even more remarkable was when he put it up on Twitter, and I think 7,000 people commented on it. So it was capturing a feeling. And there's a real magic to that, taking that back. Like any kind of publishing that you do with young people, any kind of framing and showing that they're actually heard in the world. And that kind of put a rocket under the group, I think. And this is another poem of Lynette's, and this one actually hit Instagram, which is not a place I know, but apparently this one got 12,000 likes on Instagram because it's quite romantic. This is Lynette again. One thing that recurs in so many of the kids' poems is that they missed being touched, they missed touching people. And of course they're 17, 18, 19, and the idea that we're going to lock people up that age, that age for long, and they're not going to touch each other is, well, asking for the riots that are happening at the moment. But anyway, note, when all this is over, I'm planning to meet you in a coffee shop where I'll lean way back like a free man and hold my cup to the air as if inspecting a jewel. I'm hoping for rain so hard we can't tell what are stars and which are raindrops, so we have to stand under the same black bat-like umbrella. Looking at the halo around the street lamp will remind me of how I used to be scared of the dusk sky. I'll tell you this quietly, as you'll be close enough to hear me. Where were you during the total eclipse? I'll ask. By the time this is over, it'll be winter, high time for ice skating. We'll make music stave tracks behind us, and when I trip you, you'll be allowed to reach out and catch me. Lynette does all her own line breaks. I think that's just amazing. Well, she's staggering in many ways. I asked her about that poem and she said I drew it first and showed me all these black and white pen drawings that she'd done of it. So she's a kind of stone cold genius, really. But it's a very varied group. So also we have, where are we? This is Amina Abu Koresh. Amina's 16, and she came to the UK from Syria when she was in 2016. And when I met her, she was she wrote in Arabic, and she won the John Betjeman Prize. She's a very, she's a very motivated, self-possessed girl. It's been really interesting seeing her journey out of Arabic, because I asked her for an Arabic version of this one, and she said, do you know, I wrote this one in English. And actually you can tell she did, because it's got breathe and believe, and she's listening to the sound of those two English words. And this was a response to the killing of George Floyd. And of course she went back to the sea, which Amina always does in all her poems. She's always either back in Syria or she's back in the sea, and thinking about, those journeys. So she was thinking about being carried out because of Syria. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't believe a man came out and did not know what was waiting for him. I can't breathe. I can't believe a man went out without saying goodbye. I can't breathe. I can't believe a man went out and did not know that he was never coming home. I can't breathe. I can't believe a child is carried to the sea without knowing where he was going. I can't breathe. I can't believe the sea swallows him and returns him to the beach. I can't breathe. I can't believe a child whose last words were, Mama, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't believe a human knee will end his life. I can't breathe. I can't believe a man died quietly like silk and slept under the killer's knee. When I first met Amina, she was really, poetry is very, very interesting to her. When she was frustrated with English because it doesn't rhyme enough, she wanted the full rhymes of Arabic. And I remember just explaining to her that there just aren't enough rhymes in English. You can't do that. You've got to listen to the other sounds. And just reading that now, I was really struck by how really much she does listen to those other sounds and how completely on top of it she now is. So she's just at GCSE stage. And then the next thing that happened, of course, in the great bit of history and trauma that we've all been through, it's the Black Lives Matter protest. And this is Anna. There she is, isn't she lovely? And she wrote, Anna's always been quite reticent to write about, her mixed identity, where she comes from, and then she suddenly came out with this poem, which is called OX4, and it's again, it got like thousands and thousands of reads and likes on Twitter, which was very exciting for her, and we were even on the local news standing in a bandstand. But she was writing about her OX4 and OX1, and one of the things she said very vividly was actually, I wrote about it because that's both of me, I like that. OX4. On average, people in OX4 live 15 years fewer than those in OX1. 4 is the dirt under fingernails. 4 is curry leaves sleeping on the edge of my plate. 4 is soft turmeric fingerprints tattooed down your stairs. I watch you roll 4 up in tight Rizzler hugs. OX1 watches OX4 smash a window with a mugged caked football, photographs the glass shards perched on moss embroidered concrete. Will never understand that in OX4 I can imagine you as a doctor isn't a compliment. OX4 writes chalky words that get brushed off the smooth cream paint, the kind of chalk that makes you cough if you breathe it in too deep. But all 4's words are stained anyway. The 4 stain won't wash out. Today the news is orange. So many people ill with 4. I take 4 into myself, hate my middle name, Charvy. It means good with words, but to 1 it means 4. 4 doesn't walk on the pavement, 4 runs in the road. 4 is the plaster that stripes my skin like mismatched floorboards. 4 is salted cheeks, streaks down hot cheeks. 4 is the sun slipping behind clouds, a loss of possibility, a broken zip. So that's Anna's poem. Now, people always say, well, how do you get them to do that? And I think there is, I think some people think I write them, but this is not true. And you can tell, I think, by the fact that they're so varied, that that's not me. That really is them. And what I want to show you today is all what I do. And it's really a very simple trick, which is that I let them read a whole poem and then respond with a whole poem. I think there is a sort of disease in English, and especially in schools, of chopping things up, of saying, well, I mean, Go starts with grammar. When we say you have to learn grammar in order to write properly, we're telling them a very big lie, because grammar is the description of what we write and speak. It's not the bones of it. And it's the same with poems. You say, well, you teach them the form and then they can write the poem, and that's not true. The form is the description of the poem, description of some of the things that language can do, only a few of them. And we can really take in the whole of a poem. And people who can't read and write can take in the whole of a poem. In fact, people who can't read and write are often better at taking in the whole of a poem if you say it to them. Many of my students come from oral cultures and they know enormous amounts of verse, and they know enormous amounts about verse. Kids who have difficulties such as dyslexia are some of my strongest poets because they listen to the whole poem. So really what I try to do when I work with poetry and with anybody is to give people a whole poem and let them take it in, and then, basically write one back. And it seems to work. It sort of works over and over and over again that these poems come. And I hope that, that we're going to have a look go at that today. But we do need to warm up a little bit. So what I'm going to get you to do now, I hope everyone's got a pen and paper or a phone or whatever they prefer to write on. Mustn't be judgmental. Lots of people write on phones. And I'm just going to ask you, I'm going to get you to play a little round with the furniture game. With the furniture game is when you can do this with people, and it's quite vivid. It's when you say, if they were a bit of furniture, what furniture would they be? Are they a sofa or are they an upright chair? If they were a breed of dog, what dog would they be? If they were a kind of weather. And it's just a way of just asking yourself evocative questions. There's lots of different uses for it in class, but it's going to play a quick round of the furniture game, okay? So we've all got shared trauma we're writing about. You've got lockdown or quarantine, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to give you some prompts. Just try writing down the answers. There aren't right answers. There's only top of your head, okay? If you can't think of anything, just go on to the next one. If you want to write 8 things, write 8 things. If my voice seems intrusive, try and turn it off. Unfortunately, I can't, respond to every single. Can't respond to you the way I would like to because I can't see you. That's the problem. So what we're doing is lockdown. So if lockdown was an animal, what animal would it be? A cat with his tail in the middle of your screen. A whale which has swallowed everything. What animal is it? If it was a plant, what plant would it be? Little spider plant with spiky leaves. Or a cactus. And what's the sound of lockdown? One penetrating Zoom call. What's lockdown's colour? What's lockdown's taste? Being very specific. You burp it up the next day. What's lockdown's shoes? What's its hat? Or its hair? Its hair is very dominant. And if you had to put it in a container, what container would it be? And how are you going to seal it off? It might take a team of people to sit on it, I don't know. You might just put it in a Tupperware box and put it in the freezer. Now I'm going to do a bit.
Kate, did you want people to put some of their ideas in the chat?
Yeah, I'm just about to say that. Yeah. Okay, so take your best idea and give it a little polish, and you're going to contribute one line to a mega poem. Okay, so you only get one line. I know you've all produced works of genius, but just take your most genius line, and you can put the lockdown at the beginning or the lockdown at the end, and start posting your lines. And then we will create a lockdown poem. Lockdown is the colour of turned avocado. Oh yes, the second piece of toast I didn't want. Flower chiffon hijab that just doesn't sit right. Curly hair peeking through. Bindweed. Oh yes, I like that. The quiff of a trump. Creeping ivy growing over everything. Yeah. Sound of a time warp in between the grooves. Ooh, the chewed inside of my mouth. I like that. Yeah. Peppery. Ooh. Wow, these are all coming. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to read these through in a minute. Oh no. Sandals with socks, I think. Gosh, there's a lot of us. A bonsai tree. Yes, I think it is. Bird song and silence. Yeah, I think we all listened to the birds, didn't we? Latex and disinfectant and your own breath. Yuck, yes. Do you remember the dry hands at the beginning of lockdown when we all had scars on our hands from washing them too much? Or rather, so much. Unprecedented times. Yeah, those are the phrases. And gaffer tape. Yeah. Well, that sounds nice, the laughing children. A loud limbo. Yeah, we've all been to limbo now, haven't we? This surely is what limbo is like. It's and we need to go somewhere. Right, I'm going to read through our joint lockdown poem composed in less than 15 minutes. Lockdown is the colour of turned avocado. Lockdown tastes of the second piece of toast I didn't want. If lockdown was a hat, it would be a flowery chiffon hijab that just doesn't sit right, with unruly curly hair peeking through. Lockdown is bindweed, silently invasive. Lockdown's hair is the badly styled quiff of a Trump or a Johnson. Lockdown is a creeping ivy growing over everything. Lockdown is gold, cheap candles that sparkle and get more comfortable each day. Well, that's strange. Yeah, weird. Lockdown, the sound of time warp in between the grooves. Lockdown tastes like the chewed inside of my mouth. That is my favourite so far. Lockdown is scarecrow hair under a floppy hat. Lockdown is threadbare slippers that shuffle from house to garden and back again. Lockdown is a bowler hat, flattened and moth-eaten. Lockdown is peppery, ground down onto every meal. Yes, I like that. Lockdown is the approaching beak of the plague doctor. Lockdown tastes of raindrops on your tongue with a little bit of iron, I guess. Lockdown is a taste of anxiety acid burning at the back of my throat. Lockdown is a huge purple foxglove with bell tunnels you can climb into. Oh wow, great beautiful image. A lead box, soldered, eagled and buried deep, yes please. Lockdown breath, held, released with birdsong. Lockdown is the bindweed engulfing everything in sight. Candles. Lockdown is a taste, desired and not there, made by someone else in an unvisited favourite restaurant. If lockdown was a plant, it would be the dead one left alone in my abandoned university dorm room for 2 months. An ant creeping everywhere, a bindweed stretching. Lockdown was a hairstyle, it would be an experiment. Lockdown is contained in a Christmas chocolate where we posted our hopes and dreams on tiny shreds of lined paper. Sandals, maybe she meant sandals, not candles. A nifty fox prowling the streets, empty of human life. A malicious parrot that wakes through the empty night. A pair of down-at-heel slippers. Lockdown sound is a long slither over cut glass. Ow. Pink socks. Lockdown is the grass that's been let grow. Lockdown is hair stiffened by the breeze. Lockdown is unhooverable hairs embedded in the carpet. Stuff lockdown into Tupperware, but you cannot burp it. Oh, very good. Lockdown is the sour tang of starter fermenting. Lockdown is a bonsai tree, contained, stunted, dried up. Ship the lockdown trunk to the Arctic melt. the exquisite song of lockdown, mellifluous yet piercing, sharp, exquisite pain. Lockdown is the sounds of birdsong and silence. Lockdown tastes of latex and disinfectant and your own breath. Lockdown tastes of raindrops on your tongue. Lockdown is the sound of the dog across the road barking incessantly. Lockdown brings the sound of endless excuses in these unprecedented times. Lockdown is contained in a Tupperware box, sealed with gaffer tape just to be sure. It has no taste, I long for salt. The sound of laughing children cycling past, with dad on daily exercise, a loud limbo. If lockdown was furniture, it would be a shoe rack gathering dusk on the unused heels. The lockdown animal. Lockdown is the negligent nettles at the end of the garden, hurtful but when distilled, vaguely palatable. Tastes like the bitter foaming fizz of bicarbonate of soda rasping on the tongue, like a bland tepid cup of tea left on the windowsill. Old rank red wine, abrasive alcohol on the hands, dry whiskey in the throat. Like wearing lead diving boots, the loneliness we feel as we lay in bed. Lockdown is rethink, reveal, reset. Sorry, I missed the beginning of this. That's a lovely ending. The loneliness we feel as we lie in bed. Lockdown is rethink, reveal, reset. Hey, we wrote ourselves an ending, aren't we? Brilliant. That was a poem. I bet that's the first time that chat has written a poem. It should be very pleased with itself, and Zoom has a new use. So there you go. I always say English teachers, they bury their creative writing talent and they give it away to their students, and then they never grudge it. But they do need to exercise it from time to time so that they can remember it. And it does make you a better teacher if you allow yourself to make something, to do something like that. Ooh. Mrs. Most something, what have I done? Doesn't appear in my chat box. Okay, there's something funny with your chat box. I don't know what it is though, I'm useless at that kind of thing. We've both agreed that Zoom is very mysterious. I'm going to show you an exercise. Yeah, I'm going to show you an exercise that probably was one of the ones that went most powerfully with my students, which is, hang on, where's my share content? There we go. And I'm just going to show you another of my students' poems. So, no. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so this is Aisha's poem. And as you are an audience of teachers, I can just tell you how proud I am of Aisha. Aisha's 18 now. Her dad's Colombian and her mum's Dutch. And she is the most dyslexic person I've ever met in my life. And, you know, I have met a few. She really, when I first met her, couldn't write her name properly. And she's never learned to read a clock. But she has got these extraordinary gifts for poetry, and she's run several national competitions now. But this poem is amazing. This was what she wrote. I think it was after we'd been to that first cold day, after we'd been to that very, very sunny spell. I think it was about the sort of 6th week or something. And this is what she wrote. Days. On the first day, you could feel the relief from the halls, the imprinted floors, the walls still covered in pen, but no longer harbouring the hands that wrote on them JT likes SB and RS is a whore. On the third day, we sat in our living rooms with our different atmospheres. We all cried on the 4th day, men with their heavy man tears, women with their heavy man tears. On the 12th day, our parents had remembered their mother's phone numbers but forgotten their faces, the bridge of her nose, the shape of her eyebrows. On the 13th day, middle children took a survey to determine their lives inside. I watched my sister read her outcome and shackle herself to her bedroom floor. On the 14th day, we tried to remember, which only led to anger. On the 34th day, I broke a swan's neck in my dream and tried to forget again. Today it rained like February. The kids were still out on their bikes though, pedals fitting half a foot, handles too big for their handlebars. In the evening the sun poured in, but the day was already lost. The day were out, maybe the 1000th day. The fish might have disappeared into the river again. I might not ever walk down where I saw them that day. I might not remember the place in front of the black tree, ornamented with cormorants, like my grandmother's hands with rings. Which is a really staggering poem for somebody 17 to have written. It really sums up so many of the things we saw, and its structure is so beautiful. But I am going to, I'm about to show you the workings and show you how that was done, because that poem comes from this poem that I hope that we can share and write our own poems from. And this is the great American poet Jane Hirshfield. This poem is freely available on the internet, as are several other Jane Hirshfield poems. And she wrote, it's not a lockdown poem, she wrote it before lockdown. It's that very rare thing, a really good environmental poem, because people do, it gives rise to sort of great anxiety and priggery writing about the environment, but this isn't like that at all. The fifth day. On the fifth day, the scientists who studied the rivers were forbidden to speak or study the rivers. The scientists who studied the air were told not to speak of the air, and the ones who worked for the farmers were silenced, and the ones who worked for the bees. Someone from deep in the Badlands began posting facts. The facts were told not to speak and were taken away. The facts, surprised to be taken, were silent. Now it was only the rivers that spoke of the rivers, only the wind that spoke of its bees, while the unpausing factual buds of the fruit trees continued to move towards their fruit. The silence spoke loudly of silence, and the rivers kept speaking of rivers, of boulders and air, bound to gravity, earless and tongueless. The untested rivers kept speaking. Bus drivers, shelf stockers, code writers, machinists, accountants, lab techs, cellists kept speaking. They spoke the fifth day of silence. So very, fantastically clear and evocative poem. And there's something about those, those numbered days that are a bit like Genesis, and they give you a sort of a grandeur, and there's a simplicity. But there's also, I think the tension that really worked for writing about lockdown was that the unpausing factual buds, the noticing of nature, because that is something that happens. I think all of us have noticed that out in the silence, in the song, the sound that the silence has given to the songbirds. We've all heard that, and we've all seen, and people have been trapped in their gardens looking at plants as they never had before. So I think those two things somehow gave rise to a powerful poem, and I think it's going to work for you guys too. So what we're going to do now is a little bit. If I was teaching this poem in a school, I would not spend a lot of time on the poem. I mean, I wouldn't dissect it. I wouldn't say, can anyone spot a metaphor? I'd just make sure that everyone's understood it, that they've got all the words. And then just talk about all the things that you generally maybe try and bat away when you're talking about poetry, but the most personal associations. So if somebody wants to say, that reminds me of my great grandmother, let them say it. To bring the whole parcel of your own personal associations to a poem is what I try to encourage people to do. Not to kind of slightly the opposite. I mean, I always put my hand up and say, oh well, criticism and creativity, they all feed into each other. Actually, I don't know. I think you have to turn off some of those and just do a little bit of reception. But anyway, they try and do that. So I make sure everyone explains it, and then I let people talk a bit and bring their associations to the surface and think of all the things that poem makes them think of. And then try and do what I'm about to do with you now, which is I'm going to just give you some prompts, and I'm just going to encourage you to write. There's a lot of you here, and I can't see what you're doing. So normally in a room, I'd be able to kind of feel when people are writing enough and not writing enough. What's going to happen is I'm going to give you prompts at the wrong time now, and my voice is going to annoy you sometimes, and I'll intrude, and you'll think I'm moving too fast or too slowly. And I can't really do much about that. You're just going to, if I'm saying too much, resist the temptation to tell me on chat. Just try and just turn me off if you like. If you've got a brilliant idea for a poem, just mute me and start writing. If you feel that you'd like a little bit of talk, then just listen to me kind of. All I'm doing is just giving you little nudges just to try and keep going. And if you were children, I would say it doesn't matter about your handwriting. It doesn't matter about your spelling. And nobody try to rhyme, because we do not have enough rhymes in English. That's what I always say in my multicultural school. I think it's so true. Okay, so no one try and rhyme. No wow words are allowed in my Zoom room. No ostentatious adjectives. Right, so where are we going to go? We're going to go back to the 5th day. So give yourself a first line. On the first day, what happened on the first day of lockdown for you? On the first day, because the first day is according to you, not according to anyone else. On the first day, the scientists, if you like. On the first day, the politicians. And then where did you go? Okay. Tell me something that was forbidden. The facts were told not to speak and were taken away. Something that was forbidden. Something you were told not to. The scientists who studied the air were told not to speak of the air. Have you got another number? The 3rd day or the 4th day? On the 3rd day, what happened? So you can get the word worked in. The ones who worked for the farmers were silenced, and the ones who worked for the bees. Someone from deep in the Badlands began posting facts. What about something insane from the internet that you heard? Maybe on another day, on the 7th day, or the 14th day. The survey you filled in. A bit of muting or unmuting that you learnt. Another day, another number. What about a dream? On the 17th day, I dreamt. Tell me something about your hair, about your teeth or your hair. Who did you dream of? Tell me something about your hair. On the 21st day, do something to it. Give me a number and something about your hair, or something else about something about your body, your feet, your mouth, or everyone's hair, if you like. Everyone's hair, if you're not too much with yourself. Let's get the hair in there. And bus drivers, shelf stockers, code writers, machinists, accountants, lab techs, cellists kept speaking. What about a bit of a list? Can you interact with your own language a little bit? Interact with your metaphors. The facts we're told not to speak can be taken away. The fact surprised to be taken were silent. Can you interact with an abstraction? My dream was arrested. My hopes, which had been so hopeful, stopped doing homeschooling. I stopped homeschooling my hope. I muted them. Something a little meta. Again, date. And the first day I told my hopes that we would be fine in homeschool. And the 35th day, told the holidays would never come. I gave up on their education. What's the natural things that you've been seeing? Only the rivers that spoke of the rivers, only the winds that spoke of its beams, while the unpausing factual buds of the fruit tree continued to move towards their fruit. And you can put a number against that if you want. On the 31st day, I saw the river. And the last day, or maybe the natural things are just there all the time against the background of all these numbered things that you're noticing. What have you seen? Keep it sensual. What have you heard? What have you seen in nature that can go in your poem? Your poem about lockdown. What was it saying? I mean, that's the idea of it having a voice. What were the birds saying? The river saying? The streets saying? Can they tell you what to think about all this? Can they make a memorial? It's going to give you a short time to write. It's just a portrait of my students in action. Mm. That's the cover of our book. We're all doing a self-portrait. We haven't all got there yet. It's Lynette in the left-hand corner. And Marnie on the right, and there's Anna. I'm going to put it on Kindle. I just think people should just read our book. We'll just do it, and people can just buy it and pay £3 for it. And before this isn't my usual mode, but I'm doing with the Forward Arts Foundation. I've made some materials using some of the lockdown poems and workshops basically with some of the Forward Prize poems, and it's for schools. So I've made a lovely resource which they're making available online, and I'm going to be doing a couple of workshops for where you get to write yourself and explore some of the workshops yourself. And there's one on Saturday, and then there's one on Thursday the 16th. So if anyone wants to screenshot that or whatever, you can just go along to Forwards Arts and book yourself in. It won't be the same as this. I will do something different. I do have, just some specific ideas about how to work with some of the Forward poems, for yourself, but also with classes. So there you go. Now, this is insanely rushed. And normally I would be giving you at least half an hour now, and I would be coming around and looking at people's work and telling them it's wonderful, which is the only thing you must ever do. Just tell people they're great, because everyone carries on feeling very shy about their work, even when they're well-published poets. So you must tell them 10 positive things for one thing we might make better. But I'll be doing that, and then we will be sharing. But as it is, I think it is important to share. So what I'm hoping is that in the next
You seem to be muted, Kate.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So have you got me back on Zoom? Right. So if you could put me on, if you think you've got something that you could bear to share, if you could put your name up on chat, and then Rachel and I are going to unmute you, and then we'll actually see some of these faces and hear some poems. We all do understand that nobody's had any time. So if any brave person would like to put their name up and say that they would be brave enough to share a poem, that would be really exciting. We're sitting here and waiting. Oh, people always say that, not what I asked. I didn't ask for you to write a certain kind of poem. I asked you to write a poem, dear participants. There isn't a right answer. There we go. Okay. Well, if Kelly, I think Kelly, as you are the first volunteer, why don't you go for it? Can we unmute Kelly? Rachel's working out how to do it. Okay, we've got
Becky,
enough.
I might need you to help.
Becky still here?
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So two very quick drafted ones, but I'll read you one unless anyone's desperately shy and needs me to keep talking and fill up space, which is what I tend to do. And this one's called That Summer. It was the too tight jeans and lonely nights, the bitten fingernails and the company of half-crescent moons shared from the same sky in different streets. It was the sigh of the kettle as it was overworked and overused, the silent wheel spinning, connecting, connection lost, try again. It was the phone calls and letters and nights spent drunkenly laughing into a screen I wished I could reach through until our hands touched at last.
Oh, very romantic and lovely. It's a love poem. Do you want to turn your video on so we can see you?
I would, but I don't really know how. I've joined you on my phone when I usually do this on my computer, and I don't have it on that, I'm afraid.
Okay. Oh, well, that was a really lovely poem anyway. It would be nice just to be able to sort of see you smiling. Shall we? Who we got next then, Rachel?
I think Beth was next.
Beth was next.
Becky,
Right.
I might need you to. I don't seem to be able to unmute people for some reason.
Okay. Can we unmute everybody then, and then people can, unmute?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so this is the poem then that I've put together for Kate's prompts from the first day poem.
Okay. Can you video, or it's so nice to see people's faces. Can you do that?
I'm just wondering.
Maybe it can work.
No, that's the mute. There doesn't seem to be. Oh, maybe if I move the chat, it might. No.
There's a little camera.
I'm really sorry. There doesn't appear to be a little camera there on my.
Well, okay. We'll have to
screen.
check you.
I'm sorry.
Few donuts into your poem. Okay.
Okay, here it is. But as it is rough, obviously.
Obviously.
On the first day, there was preparation, the counting of tins of tomatoes, dried yeast, and the right kind of flour. Then we waited. What we waited for, we didn't know. We were forbidden from walking out for longer than a clock could tick the hour. On the third day, we had to make a plan for milk, for vegetables. The people who worked in the hospitals cried in cars, and there was nothing to comfort them. By the end of the 10th day, the scientists stood with hands by their sides while the others vomited lies and the streets were empty. On the 19th day, I dreamt of the hedgehog curled in the nest at the end of the garden. He did not know about me, and neither did the goldfinches. On the 20th day, my hair was long enough to curl around me like bindweed, slowing me down. And all the while, the birds kept singing, and they sang out the words our masters forbade us, and note after note, they gave us the chorus of our disbelief, and we knew that the birdsong was the truth.
Oh, that's an amazing poem. You can end it on disbelief.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That's great. Are you pleased?
Yes, I am quite actually. Thank you.
Congratulations, you had a poem. It's alive and kicking. It looks very well. You can buy it a hat, send it off somewhere. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Have we got another? Oh, we have got another person.
Patricia.
Yeah. Oh, some unmute. That's what my anthology is called. Unmute.
Hello. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's very rough and ready, and now I've heard other people's. I've got that usual thing the kids get of, oh, mine's really awful, but but I'll read it anyway.
Yeah.
Very rough and ready. It hasn't got a title. On the first day, a rabbit was caught in headlights, momentarily petrified. On the third day, hugs were silenced, forbidden to stand the super-spreading contagion, they said. On the fourth day, the birds dared to surface, now less suffocated, given permission by the hasty retreat of the belching black breath of cars. On the seventh day, the politicians' performance was clear, mendacious mouths of self-congratulatory platitudes. On the 14th day, I dreamt of green and grey and tasted the bittersweet tang of lemon and sugar. On the 21st day, the government advisor took the rules and bent them irrevocably out of shape. Something snapped. The end of compliance? On the 30th day, I realized the truth had been imprisoned in suffocating concrete, crushing my lungs. Only the greens spoke softly in wide open spaces, offering brief respite. Only the birds seemed to know of something better. Perhaps they are wiser than we.
Okay, brilliant. Again, only the birds seem to know something better. There's yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's a great poem. There's I always one of the things I do is go around and take away the first line and the last line. Quite often people come with a great last line, a really great last line, like the birds seem to know something better, and then they get embarrassed about it and add something else in case we haven't understood. Yeah, we will always understand. And people tend to clear their throats at the beginning of a poem, in just putting a line that basically says, "Oh, I bet you're not going to understand this because it's not good enough, so I'm going to explain it." Just be a bit more, never apologise, never explain, especially not in a poem. Just go.
I say that to my children at school as well. I say all of that, and then when we're in those shoes.
Yeah, I know, no, absolutely. We all do it. And it's not that anyone you ever stop doing it. You just learn the habit of chopping it off immediately afterwards. That's brilliant. Have we got another poem? Oh, someone else.
Yeah, that was Katie Harling-Lee. Unmute, Katie.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for this. This has been great fun. So
great. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'll just read the poem.
Yes, please.
Okay. On the first day, I had already been in lockdown for a week, self-imposed, taking charge over politicians who seemed not to see the reality of the world they lead. Hugs were forbidden, but I didn't like strangers hugging me anyway. Shaking hands was also no longer possible without a sense of guilt, so England turned to other cultures for their greetings. On the third day, I attempted to shop, to balance my working day with survival shopping, to find the supplies which we did not know if we would need. On the 14th day, conspiracies appeared. USA blamed China, China blamed USA. The world watched the world, only now discovering that we were all just one world. On the 17th day, my hair fell out as I stood in a bathroom that was also a kitchen and a meadow, watching strand after strand fall to the ground before blinking awake with hair in my eyes. On the 21st day, I cut my husband's hair with kitchen scissors and a YouTube video. It wasn't half bad, and there was no one to see it anyway. On the 20th day, I lost count of my days. I had 2 Tuesdays, then a Friday. What were weeks? What were days? Days were days, then days went away, became moments, sun up, sun down. What needed days when all is postponed? So I put the days away into a drawer. I saw a blackbird, just one, and not all black. Each day I nodded, smiled to the blackbird on my windowsill, with a white collar and black tie. What a smart little blackbird, much smarter than I in my 2-day-old jumper and pajama bottoms. Each time I saw him, I said hello, but he was too busy enjoying an outside life. Soon he flew away and I remained waiting for the next moment and another moment.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You want to start with the dream?
Okay.
That dream which is really strong. You can start there and then the poem will go from there.
Great.
It really cracked on at that moment. That's when it really began.
Okay,
Fantastic.
thank you.
Wonderful. I think we got time for just one more person, I think.
Emily.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'll just read the last little bit of mine. Thank you very much, Kate. It's been really great.
Great.
Okay, so on the 31st day, my worries closed the curtains and climbed back into bed. We put down our books and buried fronted adverbials in the garden beside the compost heap. On the 40th day, I asked the river when would this end, and the river shrank back and laughed, delighting in the empty parks, the carless streets, the picnicless benches. See how life is better without your endless interruptions, it is saying. See how much more you hear when you are forced to be still a while. And that's it.
That's wonderful. Whoa. What kind of flowers do fronted adverbials make, though? I don't like to think. What terrible courgettes do they give birth to? Oh. That was really fun. That was fantastic. I think we have to stop. And if it was a workshop, we'd all be reading each other's work and applauding each other and hugging each other, and it would be really nice. We can't do that. What do we do, Rachel? Do we all just like say goodbye or something, or wave? Or we can't even put our cameras on and wave.
No, I know. I don't know. I don't know whether there'll be any forum. I know there's and Becky can give us some more details on it. There is a discussion forum on the English Air Futures website. So I guess if anybody were happy to share anything they've written, it could go there. I'm just always amazed how brilliant and how varied the poems are that come out from these kinds of sessions, Kate. They're amazing. Yeah,
absolutely. And they're all your own poems. They're not imitations of Jen Hirschfield. They're all your own poems. But it's such a strong, it just gives you the strength. And that honestly is how poets do it. You're always echoing another poet, even if you've been writing for 1,000 years. You just pick up those forms. It's not such an individual endeavor as is widely made out. It's a communal thing. People in other societies sing a poem, then you sing one back, and and we can do it too. We just can, and so can loads of kids in your classes as well. So I guess I press leave meeting for all, which is always a sad thing. There's people going on. I wish it had been longer too. Yes.
Thank you, Kate. That was brilliant. Yes. Somebody suggests. I think it's Gail suggested posting things on Twitter. If you're on Twitter,
post your poem on Twitter. Absolutely. And if you want to do some more on these kind of exercises and pick up some, other exercises, they're at the Forward Arts Foundation. There's going to be a online resource, and there's going to be a couple of sessions for teachers to talk about that. So if you want to do some more, that's where I'll be. Thank you. And also Kate Clanchy, you better follow me, or you probably all do, on Twitter for more poems. There we go. Do I press it end meeting? That seems a bit sad.
Bye.
Okay, here I go. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.